Happy Labor Day, everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. We're coming to you on a Monday. Obviously, it is Labor Day here in the United States. I'm David Huppin. Right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins. And thank you very much for joining us. And today is going to be a new edition of a show that we're debuting today. Something a little bit different than we normally do during our football. This is going to be a staple of our football coverage for this upcoming season. This show will normally air on Thursday nights. Because of other arrangements that I have going on, I cannot make it on Thursday this week, so we're doing it tonight, this week. So welcome to Prime Sports World's Games of the Week. So all of our panelists here at Prime Sports World, we all picked one game, and we're going to talk about that one game. We basically picked one game that we think is extremely interesting going into week number 1, and we're going to do that for every single week of the regular season. Also, if you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. We go live basically every single day, bringing the most up-to-date content, and we are really stepping up our games when it comes to our NFL football content. So hopefully you guys all enjoy the show, the content we're putting together. I also have shared the StreamYard link into all of the places. So if you want to join us and talk some NFL action, you want to have some insight into the games that we've chosen to preview, let us know. TJ, happy Monday, man. Happy Labor Day, buddy. Did you have the day off or did you have to work? Yeah, I had to work as well.
I'll have to go in tonight, so I'm good. I was chilling.
Yeah, I had to work this morning or this all day basically. It wasn't so bad. There wasn't a whole lot to do for content wise. everybody knows or doesn't know, I work at a TV station. I'm a television news producer. On holidays, it is awfully difficult to put shows together because there's just no content whatsoever. Like it is rough. I ended up pulling a lot of stuff from Indianapolis and on the reel.
You kind of had to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here in Fort Wayne. It's a pretty small city. But let's talk about so I know what your game is. It's gonna be the first one we're gonna be talking about. Also, Christian Simpson, welcome to the show. DailyBlitz.blog's very own Christian Simpson, welcome to the show, man. We're gonna be talking a little bit about each of our games we've previewed, and also Izzy and Matt James and I picked the 6th game because I thought somebody would pick this game, but they didn't. Christian, did you get that haircut yet? Are you still wearing the hat?
No, I didn't.
Bro,
Nah, man.
He is wearing a Scully. That's how you know it's bad. He is rocking a Scully right now, bro.
I literally just got in and I left my AC on. See, don't listen to TJ. He don't know shit from chocolate sauce. So
he left your AC on, so you gotta wear a hat. I mean, how cold is it there?
How cold is? Now,
come on, dude. It's 70 degrees outside.
We know the truth.
Let's get into the first game. Let's talk about TJ Hopkins' game of the week. And, of course, he picked his hometown city, the Chicago Bears, welcoming in the San Francisco 49ers. So here's some stats from last season because they haven't played a game yet this year. San Francisco, obviously, 10-7. They put up 25 points per game. They allowed 21.5. Their key players on offense are Trey Lance, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Elijah Mitchell, and Trent Williams. On the defensive side of the football, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Kadarius Ward, they signed a free agency from the Kansas City Chiefs, and Eric Armstead, one of the mainstays there on the defensive line. On the Bears side of this, last season, 6-11, points per game, 18.3 points against, 23.9. Key players on offense, Justin Fields, Dave Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and Cody Whitehair, who obviously plays center for the Chicago Bears. And the key players on defense, at least as long as they continue to be on the roster, Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson, and Jalen Johnson, who is a starting cornerback 1 there in Chicago. A lot of turmoil there in Chicago. New GM, new coaching staff in San Francisco. Moving on from the Jimmy Garoppolo, very popular guy in the locker room, to start Trey Lance this season. So let's talk about this game a little bit more in depth than we did in our preview episode. DJ, obviously this was your game of the week. Why did you pick this as your game of the week, other than probably the obvious?
Because of all the storylines that go with it. Like each team has their own stuff going on. Like obviously, if you're San Francisco, you're in a better situation than what's going on here in Chicago. It's not close, but you still got issues on the left, right? You got Trey Lance having to deal with, if I don't play well, Jimmy Garoppolo is still here, and I'm basically looking over my shoulder after every mistake. And he came and said that he's kind of bothered by the fact that Jimmy G is still here. He's still there in San Francisco. He said that. Not me. He did.
I've been saying this for a long time. Like every time you've seen a team move away from a popular quarterback to bring in a younger player, you've always seen that team trade away the incumbent. Like, Joe Flacco didn't stay there longer when Lamar Jackson took over. He didn't see Alex Smith still on the roster when Patrick Mahomes took over. I just think he shouldn't still be on the team. Like I don't know how you can go forward with him still on the roster and have that constant conversation that's going to be inevitable. Where people are talking about, Jimmy Garoppolo's here, he gives us a chance to win. Why is he not playing more or playing at all? I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Trey Lance is constantly, every single play he makes a mistake, he's going to have to be looking over his shoulder. Like, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to go in for me? Is this my last game? Am I going to get the yank?
And I get it, they got him re-signed, but I don't think anybody's happy with how the Deebo Samuel contract situation played out. No one is ever happy if it takes the mega trade to get some money work done, right? Like no one is ever happy about that. Nobody can ever be happy about that, about how that goes down. I have nothing but positives to say about George Kittle and Bosa, two dudes that, well, especially once you in the DPOY running, that being Nick Bosa, George Kittle, just stay healthy. Same thing with Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. I like this because you got one linebacker that got paid in Fred Warner, and you got another linebacker that's trying to get paid, and Roquan Smith. And in many instances, well, a couple instances, you had a situation where Roquan Smith put up better numbers than Fred Warner. He had the season where he had more tackles than Fred Warner. He had the season where he had more picks than Fred Warner and more TFL. But somehow, some Fred Warner he gets the All Pro nod, he gets the Pro Bowl nod over a Roquan Smith. All right, left tackle Trent Williams. Come on, man. Hey, you're the only 99 overall left tackle in the game of Madden. You're just you. Right?
He might be the best offensive lineman. He might be the best offensive lineman in football, period.
And there's not many folks that have weight in that conversation. Maybe but Quentin Nelson in Indianapolis, but even then, I don't think it's close.
I think because of the position they play, I think that's what the discrepancy is between the two of those guys. Because Quentin Nelson plays guard. Obviously, Trent Williams plays a more important position in the NFL in tackle, especially blind spot tackle.
So if you're it's a bunch going on in San Fran. So like you got to keep in mind, you got GM coach were at odds over the quarterback. Right? One GM wanted one guy wanted Mac Jones. That was John Lynch. Kyle Shanahan wanted Trey Lance, so they got Trey Lance. And if it doesn't work, John Lynch is going to be, hey, I tried to get my guy in here, but I get it. Coach has to play with it. Like I have to get the guy that fits my system. Over in Chicago, David already mentioned it. New GM, new coach, new arena color.
New president next season. Ted Phillips resigning at the end of this year.
40 years too late. Yeah. So that's not here. That's off the field stuff. But obviously, Matt Eberflus comes in, and yeah. What about Green Bay? What about who Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball to? Because that's
We'll get to the Packers here. We'll get to the Packers here in a few minutes. Christian, just some thoughts on this matchup before TJ jumps more into the coaching stuff going on with Chicago Bears.
Last week when I did the interview with Gabe Salgado from WWGN Radio, that was the first thing I addressed. Was all right. I want to know. I just want to get the elephant out the room right now. Roquan Smith, is he happy? And then he just looked at me. He was like, no, he's not at all. Like he's very frustrated, and this is going to get sour. This is going to go south before it gets any better. I think this game can be close. You have two young quarterbacks featured in this one, but I look at the Bears secondary. I don't know if they have enough to keep up with that three-headed monster that the 49ers have in the receiving corps. That's George Kittle, that's Brandon Ayuk, and then the dynamic one, Deebo Samuel. I think San Fran wins this game.
I also picked San Francisco to win this game, but I think that there are a lot of interesting storylines that come with this game. I knew TJ was going to pick this one. I actually thought somebody was going to pick the other game that I didn't pick, which is why I didn't pick it, and nobody did, so I had to include it anyways. We'll see if that continues as we get through these prime sports games of the week. But I mean, the Chicago Bears. I mean, this is really a changing in the guard. I mean, they got Matt Eberflus. I mean, the total new, everything brand new. Justin Fields looked awesome in his last preseason game with that grain of salt last preseason game. TJ, you wanted to touch a little bit on the Chicago Bears coaching staff and new regime. Just thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just don't like how and it's a trap that the media does. Like, oh, they're failing Justin Fields. He has a defensive-minded coach. Like, are offensive coordinators not allowed to call offense no more? That's like me and David lament to this point all the time. Like, yo, that's what the offensive coordinator is for, right? Like, and I hate to break it to y'all, but just because you have an offensive-minded head coach, that doesn't make him Andy Reid.
Sure.
Right? That doesn't guarantee success. Literally, the Bears just had an offensive-minded coach. Where is he? Not a head coach anymore. Literally. So that's how it happens. That's how it works. Right? So we get Luke Gadsby from Green Bay. He's already implemented stuff, and from what I read, people like what they see. Obviously, you wish you had better names at receiver. Right? Everybody outside of Darnell Mooney is question mark. But it's one of those you gotta wait and see. It's one of those you gotta wait and see what you're gonna get, and what you see is what you get kind of things. So I have nothing. Like I'm going into season optimistic because I already know we're not going to be a playoff team, right? I already know that, but it's are we going to be 3-14 like Sports Illustrated predicted? Probably not. God no.
I think we'll get 5 or 6 wins. But this season's not really about how many
No.
wins the Chicago Bears actually have on the football field. It's about seeing development of the key positions. Like you want to see the secondary take a step because I think they have some lot of young players that could be essential for moving forward and having a really good secondary. I want to see the growth of Justin Fields from season 1 to season 2. I want to see him go through his reads. I want to see him go through his progressions. And I want to see Darnell Mooney continue to play well.
And Christian, can the defense hang on, keep up with that trio in San Fran? Can Trey Lance get him the ball? Trey Lance has only thrown passes in 2 NFL games, and one of them was against Houston Texans. All right, take with that what you will. So until he proves consistent, I said it yesterday. Like Trey Lance and 49, they're gonna be asked the same questions for at least the first month of the season, at least. All right.
So we'll see how that games are shaking out. We'll move on into Christian's game. He is the second game here. He's got the Green Bay Packers going into the Minnesota Vikings, taking on that crowd noise and the Minnesota Vikings in their aerial attack. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, Christian, question: did you pick this game to beat Patty? Did you pick this game so Izzy wouldn't pick it?
Nah.
Okay. That's all I want to
say. Green Bay Packers. Hold on. Green Bay Packers last year's record 13-4, 26.5 points per game, 21.8 points allowed. Key players on offense. Obviously, there's a big name missing there. That's usually a staple of the Green Bay Packers offense of Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Alan Lazar, A.J. Dillon, David Bakhtiari, who's probably going to start the season on the PUP list if he's not already on it. Robert Tonyan, who also not clear if he's going to be on the PUP list. Key players on defense: Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, Devontae Campbell, and Kenny Clark. On the Minnesota side of this, 8-9 last season, points per game 25, points against 25.1. Fun fact about Minnesota: they led the league in sacks allowed and sacks, just sacks in general. So they could get all the sacks they want, but their offensive line wasn't good. Key players on offense: Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Christian Darrisaw, and Jalen Reagor, who was funny enough traded to this team earlier this week or last week actually. He was taken with 1 pick before Justin Jefferson in that draft. Key players on defense: Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, Zadarius Smith, and Daniil Hunter on the Minnesota Vikings side. Christian, so what's the interest for you in this particular game?
There's a lot of unpredictability between the two because there's always that one key weapon for Green Bay and Devontae Adams. He's not there anymore. So who's Minnesota going to zoom in on? I look at Green Bay. They're going to build this offense around Aaron Jones until Aaron Rodgers is on the same page with those wide receivers. I mean, Alan Lazard, he's good, but he doesn't put fear into a secondary like a Devontae Adams or some other weapons. I think they're going to build this around Aaron Jones and they're going to build this around Robert Tonyan. And I look at Green Bay's defense. Yeah, they've been good, but like I said yesterday, and I said it throughout the year last year, they play defense in spurts. They look good for a half, they look good for a quarter, and they just give up because they get complacent. So I just want to see them put it together for 60 minutes. And if they can do that, they're going to be a dangerous team. I mean, I look at the key players that you put for defense. Rashawn Gary, he's going to be counted on to have a big year this year. He was great at Michigan. Still trying to kind of find who he is in the NFL right now, but I think he can have a great year. Jair Alexander's the top 3 corner in the league, and that's going to be the key matchup to watch in this game. Justin Jefferson against Jair Alexander, and then Kenny Clark. I think he's the most important defensive player because he eats up a lot of space. So he commands a lot of double teams, and then that's what I said yesterday. That allows those linebackers and those safeties to freely roam around in the backfield to make plays upon the football, and they're able to move from sideline to sideline. Then you look at the Minnesota side of things. Everybody wants to blame the quarterback, point fingers at Kirk Cousins, but I can honestly sit here and say if Kirk Cousins gets this team to the playoffs last year, he's an MVP candidate. Like, he put them.
Yeah, he was like 27-4.
Yeah.
His numbers are absurd for last year.
Yeah. Like, look, he put them in position to win football games. He can't play on both sides of the ball, but now has a new head coach and Kevin O'Connell, and you guys remember that comment Justin Jefferson said. Now I see why Cooper Kupp was so wide open. So I can't even wait to see what Minnesota's going to implement offensively. What's up, TJ?
And speaking of comments, David Henderson, Aaron Rodgers has done more with less, so I wouldn't worry about receivers.
Yeah.
Wait. Tell Aaron Rodgers to stop complaining about his receivers. If Aaron Rodgers has done more with less, tell him to stop complaining.
He for sure hasn't done more. He hasn't done less than what the Bears are going to be rolling out this season. Let's be serious. Let's be real. We have one proven wide receiver.
If he's done more with less, tell him to shut up and stop complaining. Because
don't choke in NFC Championship games. That's the whole thing.
No,
but I actually think this is one of those interesting games because we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers without a clear-cut number one wide receiver. Like it's always been like Aaron Rodgers since he basically got in the NFL. He's always had somebody who was his number one. It was either Greg Jennings or James Jones. Like this is the first season where you're going into it. You don't really
Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, Jordy Nelson. Yeah, like you don't really know who the number one is. Like that's a rare occurrence at Green Bay. They always have somebody. And David Henderson is right. Minnesota's secondary is an issue. I mean, outside of Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler's a little bit inconsistent. Outside of Harrison Smith, the safety position, I know they drafted the kid Lewis Cine out of Georgia, but he's just a rookie. It's a lot to ask out of a guy. This is a very interesting matchup because I picked Minnesota to win the division, and it's based on the fact that I think that they're going to be so balanced on offense that they're going to be impossible to stop.
Yeah. But it just seems like every time these two teams play, Minnesota always gives Green Bay a challenge in Minnesota. Like that's the scary thing about it. And last year,
So he says, suddenly he's not allowed to critique his wide receiver room. Okay, one, we've always supported him critiquing his wide receiver room. Have we not, David?
We have
we not done that? Yeah. Have we not always supported Aaron Rodgers and saying, get him more help? Right? We've always done that. But don't sit here and say, because like Packer fans do it all the time. And me and David, we tease Izzy about it all the time. They beat up on some bad teams. Some people step up that normally don't. But when it's really time to play a game that matters, nothing. Crickets. Choking. So, yeah, you can make fun of us Bears fans all you want. We ain't the one that's had 30-plus years of quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback play. That's not us.
They have 2 Super Bowls to show for it.
My fault, Christian. Go ahead.
Nah, man. Nah, it's all good. You had to get that off your chest, didn't you?
Because like it's the same.
Nah, I'm with you. I get where you're coming from. I get.
I think at Green Bay, I mean, this offensive line is a bit concerning for me for Green Bay. I mean, David Bakhtiari has been nicked up the last year. I mean, they never really replaced Corey Linsley at the center position. I know they've taken some swings at it in the draft, but none of those have really worked out. I think this is like the first time in Green Bay you look at their offense and there's a lot of question marks that you don't usually have with the Green Bay offense.
Yeah, you could say they have question marks, but then again, they have that guy that's one of the last 2 MVPs on the center. So I think they're going to be just fine.
They have him. They got a top 5 running back in Aaron Jones. But outside of that, I'm sleeping good at night worrying about Green Bay. Robert Tonyan wouldn't play on any other team not named Green Bay, and he coming off an ACL injury, so he's not going to be the same.
I think their defense is going to be better than their offense this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, they're going to
win a lot of ugly games.
Yeah,
a lot of ugly games.
And like I said, they're building this offense around who? Aaron Jones. Like they're gonna, because look, he's gonna almost be that safety valve for Aaron Rodgers because he's so dynamic. You can see what he can do in the running game, but in the passing game, I think he's just as important as any other pass catcher on the Packers or really any receiver. And that's the thing about running backs now. You're being asked to do more in a versatile style of football.
You have to be a dual threat running back to.
Yeah, you do to succeed in this era.
And, I mean, I can imagine they're going to be playing a lot of 2 running back sets. Like I think they'll have Aaron Jones like in the game with AJ Dillon at the same time, and they'll use that running back depth in their strength. Like they don't have the strength at the wide receiver position, but they do have depth at running back, and I think they're going to utilize that to their advantage. I know Christian, this is a shameless plug game, isn't it? Did you already post this on the website, or
Nah, I'm not previewing this one.
Okay, for sure.
Nah, I'm not previewing this one. That's why I decided to choose something different. that I
Okay,
wasn't previewing.
so yeah, I picked Minnesota. I think the panelists swept this when we did the show yesterday. If you didn't watch that show, please go back and watch it. Where we preview every single game, all 16 or all 17 matchups. So all 16 matchups. So go check that out. Let's get into my matchup. It's the on-point game of the week. It's the New England Patriots going up against the Miami Dolphins. Last year's record: 10-7 points per game. 27.2 points allowed, 17.8, number second rated defense in the National Football League. Key players on offense: Mac Jones, Damian Harris, Devontae Parker, who they traded for from the Miami Dolphins, Hunter Henry, Trent Brown, who's the left tackle. And then on defense, you got Matthew Judon, who's still there, Jalen Mills, Kyle Duggar, and Mac Wilson. Key players on their defensive side. They've really lost some defensive talent over the last few years. And then Miami, obviously hosting this game. Last year's record 9-8, as you remember. I think they started the season 1-8 and won 8 straight in a row on the way to Brian Flores getting fired in the offseason. Points per game, 20 points against, 21.9. Key players on offense, obviously Tua Tagovailoa, Chase Edmonds, who they signed in free agency from the Arizona Cardinals, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, who they traded for, Mike Gesicki, who's still here, and Terron Armstead, who they signed from the New Orleans Saints. Key players on defense: Byron Jones. It seemed if he's even going to play in this game. Actually, he's on the Publix. He for sure won't play in this game. I don't know why I put him on there. Xavier Howard, Jalen Phillips, who's the defensive end out of Miami. They took him last year's draft, and Christian Wilkins, that big to stout defensive tackle type defensive end for this defense. So the reason I picked this game is because this feels like two teams going in opposite directions. So we had New England making the playoffs last year, and we had Miami just missing the playoffs. But when you look at what they did in the offseason, I don't understand anything New England has done this offseason, from the trading away of Shaq Mason, from the not making the decisions on the coordinator situation, to not really addressing their wide receiver problem outside of trading for Devontae Parker, who's kind of, I mean, yeah, he's an upgrade of what you had, but still. And then Miami on the other side of this ball, they spent a lot of money on offseason to build up this offensive line. Got Terron Armstead, got the Connor Williams from the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously made the big splash trading for Tyreek Hill. New head coach, got Raheem Mostert, got Chase Edmonds, got basically a whole new running back room there in Miami. And I just look at these two teams, and based on just their offseason, and not to mention New England may have had the worst draft in the league this year, based on the reaching they did in the first round and the second round. I just don't think that these two teams are on the same trajectory as like New England. They had a really good feel-good season. They made the playoffs. Supposed to be in a rebuild, they ended up making the playoffs anyway. But this feels like an offseason where these two teams have gone the opposite way. Maybe I'm the only one who feels that way. But that's what it feels like to me. And I think it's interesting that these two teams are playing in week one.
Yeah, I look at this matchup as a whole. First off, let's start with New England. What's Bill Belichick known for doing as a game plan? You guys know. You guys have been watching football. What does he normally do?
Well, usually take it away.
Bingo. What TJ just said. He's going to take away what it is that you do best. And he's going to lock in on Tyreek Hill. Like, he's going to double him. They're going to have a lot of
let's
single.
Not pretend like he has a secondary that he can, do that now.
Yeah, but he's still going to find.
You don't replace him with anyone either.
But he's still going to find a way to do it somehow.
Jalen Mills hasn't been good since you've been the Green Goblin in, Philadelphia when they went
Right. Yeah, I mean, New England is, from an offensive perspective, there's nobody that scares me on that offense outside of Damian Harris and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith whenever he's on the field. They don't have – last year, they didn't have a wide receiver that eclipsed 100 yards all year long. That's why they brought in Devontae Parker, who used to play for the Miami Dolphins. But I don't know how that's going to pan out. And I think now that
he's been wildly consistent basically his entire career.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Hey, when he's healthy, he's fine. I know I know you guys hate the fantasy stuff, but I want a fantasy title with Devontae Parker.
TJ, ready? On my count. 1, 2. Hey, TJ.
I want
on
a ring.
Count.
I got the ring in my bathroom.
Fantasy.
Anyways, but yeah, I did win a championship with Devontae Parker as my wide receiver too. Okay. Okay. Anyways,
okay. You said that like you want the Medal of Freedom.
Anyways, but yeah, I just feel like these are two teams that are clearly going in opposite directions. I don't like New England what they've done in the offseason. I don't understand the coordinator stuff at all, and I am really intrigued to see how these two teams play. Like Tua, this is your team now. You've been given all of the pieces to take this team to the promised land. If you still come up short, you're obviously not the guy we thought you were in college. So this is a big game and a big season for both of these teams in week 1. I'm pretty sure when we did the preview show, I picked Miami. I'm still going to stick with that. TJ, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Belichick has, well, let's call it what it is. Like, since Tom Brady's left, but it has not been a good time in New England for Bill Belichick and the crew. I just to bring the Bears back up again. I love how they say the Bears are failing Justin Fields, but Mac Jones doesn't even know who's calling his plays. Like, that's a game-to-game basis for him, right? Like, what more failure is that? Like, you don't even have an offensive coordinator listed in New England, so that's Again, the last time we saw you on the football field, the opposing team didn't punt. The only time they didn't score was when they took a knee
down for the end of the game.
So yeah, like that's tough. Like that's like for 20 years basically, New England never had to sell football fans on them. They got to sell now, right? Like they have to find a reason to get eyes back on the Patriots, because for 20 years it was, I'm trying to watch Tom Brady win, or I'm in Davis' case, I'm trying to watch Tom Brady fall flat on his perfectly chiseled face. Right? So, and Miami, David, you said all I've been saying about Miami. Hey, Tua, if you can't win with what you got now, bro, you are just not it.
I wonder how Justin Herbert would be handling this particular offense. I mean, they got the 3 fastest players in the NFL right now in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert. So, moving on from this game, let's talk to CEOs of Prime Sports World, Mr. Israel Rivera, Game of the Week. He picked the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams after Mr. Simpson picked his team. Buffalo going into Los Angeles Rams to take on the defending, conquering, undisputed Super Bowl champions, Los Angeles Rams. By the way, if you didn't watch Raw, or you didn't start to watch Raw, Braun Strowman came back and beat up everyone in his life, and he had like his nipples pierced. Like it was wild stuff.
Why are you talking about little man nipples? Pause.
Sorry, dude. I didn't think they would let him have the nipple rings on the WWE TV. I thought for sure they'd be like, no, you can't do that. Like, anyways, Buffalo Bills last year's record 11-6. I got to fix that record on the Rams side for just a second. But points per game, 28.4. They were the number 1 defense in the National Football League last season with 17.0 points per game. But keep that with a grain of salt. They played the Jets twice a year. So key players on offense: Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary, Gabe Davis, and Roger Saffold. He is their left guard on their team. Key players on defense: Ed Oliver, Von Miller, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and Kyer Elam. The only reason that Tre'Davious White isn't on this list, he's not going to play in this game. On the Rams side of this, last year's record 12-5, not 12-6. That is a typo. Points per game 27.1. Points allowed 21.9. Key players on offense: Stafford, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers, Joe Newcomb, who is going to have to take up the mantle of replacing Andrew Whitworth at the left tackle position. And then Tyler Higbee is their starting tight end, who did not play in the Super Bowl. Key players on defense: Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, Bobby Wagner. It's a who's who when it comes to the defensive side of the football. And Izzy's not here to say why he picked this as his game of the week, but I will say this could be a potential matchup of the preview of the Super Bowl. This is why it's such an intriguing matchup for the first week of the season. And when we did the Buffalo Bills season preview, this is the only game I had them losing, and then I had them rolling through the rest of their schedule. Gentlemen, what do we think about this one as one of the game of the week previews? Like, just some thoughts.
I mean, it's just a ton of intrigue across the board, I think, on both sides. Yeah, you have 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have you have weapons across the board on both sides. A matchup of 2 top 5 wide receivers, and Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp. Von Miller with his new team, playing the team that he just helped win a championship. And like, this is going to be a litmus test for Buffalo. Like, how crazy would it be if they were able to go across the country to the West Coast, a place where East Coast teams primarily struggle, and get a win on the defending champs? Like that would really set the tone for their entire season. And then you look at the Rams. They're not going to break it down. They're just going to reload. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. You lose Robert Woods. Oh, okay, that's cool. We're just gonna go out and we're gonna go get Allen Robertson. I mean, Stafford saying that elbow has no limitations, so he's gonna be fine. But yeah, this is gonna be a great game. I see points being scored. I think it's gonna also be a hard hitting game too. And I think the key matchup in this game, Jalen Ramsey against Stephon Diggs, that's gonna be a war.
I'm also not totally sure that Jalen Ramsey is going to see Stephon Diggs for the entire game because he's not really a follow corner anymore. I do think he's going to be more of a zone heavy scheme, like how they used him last season. Like they kind of used him as a gadget player all over the place, all over the field. So I don't know how much they'll actually play against each other. But I think this is for sure a litmus test when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. A lot of questions about their offensive line, a lot of questions about their consistent running back play. And if Josh Allen wants to be considered an MVP candidate, he kind of has to come out in the first game of the season, kind of show out a little bit, like, leave that lasting memory. Like, hey, I'm here. This is my MVP. I'm here to stay. TJ.
Right.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if you look at it from two different angles, you're the Rams. The road to the repeat starts now, but it's also super unlikely because the team hasn't repeated Super Bowls in 18 years, something like that.
Since the Patriots did it, so
yeah, about 18 years, about 18 years or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And if you're Buffalo, the road to your first Super Bowl starts now, right? Josh Allen's MVP campaign starts now. Buffalo fans, I am so sorry to bring this up, but 4 straight Super Bowl appearances. 4 straight
Wide
Super
right.
Bowl losses. Wide right. Like, hey, that's probably the one that hurts the most.
Oh, for sure it does.
They
should have won that game.
That's probably the one that hurts the most. Like, it just has to. But I don't think there's ever been, like, this is probably like your most talented team probably since those teams, right? I like, no disrespect to Von Miller, but he ain't Bruce Smith, right? Bruce Smith is
the greatest Buffalo Bill ever.
yeah. I mean, there's
no
doubt there.
He's the greatest Buffalo Bill ever. Don't nothing else need to be said.
He right. He is like, and if
may he rest in peace.
I don't think Bruce Smith is dead.
Bruce Smith ain't dead. You need to go to Grandma's house. TJ, tell him where he needs to go. He just disrespected Bruce. How dare he?
All right, my bad. I
did. Oh, I should go.
He's only 59 years old, man. Oh, that's rough. My bad. Bruce Smith, I apologize. Buffalo Bill fans everywhere, I apologize. The greatest player in you guys' franchise history is still alive. I apologize.
Look, I'm texting my one friend that's a Buffalo Bills fan. I'm gonna let him know what he says to your ass. So he just rude. He just rude.
I didn't mean it. I just,
he just responded to me. He told me to leave you alone.
Thank you.
You're looking at if you're Buffalo, you're trying to sweep as many awards as humanly possible, right? Like, you're trying to sweep MVP with Josh Allen, Coach of the Year with Sean McDermott. If what's his name? If Stephon Diggs can have any type of year like Cooper Kupp did, you're trying to sweep Offensive Player of the Year. I don't know if Defensive Player of the Year is possible with Von Miller. Like, I don't know if he still has that.
It was my prediction when we did that prediction show, when we picked it, if people are going to win awards. I picked him to win the Defensive Player of the Year. But yeah, this is an extremely interesting game. Like, there's a lot of intrigue here when it comes to Buffalo versus the Rams. Yeah, this could essentially be a preview of the Super Bowl. Moving on to this, we got Matt James, Game of the Week. He picked the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the reigning AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Steelers last season 9-7-1, points per game 20 points allowed, 23.4. Key players on that offense: no more Ben Roethlisberger. It's Mitchell Trubisky at the helm, at least for now. Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Dan Moore Jr. is their center. Chase Claypool, George Pickens. It's looking like a steal of a second-round pick in this year's draft. Key players on the defensive side of the ball: T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Miles Jack, hoping to revive his career a little bit after a down season in Jacksonville last year, and Cameron Hayward, who's now playing with his brother at the tight end position, who they drafted in this year's draft. On the Cincinnati side of this, last year's record 10-7, 27.1 points per game, points allowed 22.1. Key players on offense, obviously one of the most explosive offenses in the AFC. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jonah Williams, who's their starting left tackle, and Hayden Hurst, who they signed in free agency, who played last season in Atlanta. Key players on the defensive side of the ball, Jesse Bates III, who signed that franchise tenure and will be there. Trey Hendrickson, who they signed in free agency last year and played pretty well. Logan Wilson, arguably one of the most underrated linebackers in the entire league. And Eli Apple is cornerback one, for better or for worse, for the Cincinnati Bengals. Gentlemen.
I want to see how the Bengals.
Cincinnati swept Pittsburgh for the first time in a while last season.
Yeah. I want to see how Cincinnati comes out. I think they're anxious to show that last year wasn't a fluke. A lot of people are saying, yeah, they came out of left field, but let's just put it this way. They played the best when it mattered the most. They had a couple of bumps in the road during the regular season last year, but they got hot when it mattered the most. Went to Tennessee, upset the Titans, come back from 18 points down on Kansas City. So this team is extremely battle tested. Now they have a full year of the success. Because remember I said last year, every time this team won a big game, they lose a game that they should have won. And I kept saying they're not used to success. They're a young football team from the coach on down. Now they have another year of experience underneath their belt. So I just can't wait to see how they manage the success. And as for the Steelers, they're going to run the ball, lots of Najee Harris. All they need from Trubisky is just to control the game, control the clock. Don't turn the ball over. Be that game manager. Make a throw when it's necessary.
And let's not pretend like this is not a team that has some. I know their offensive line isn't particularly all that good, which they haven't refused to address in this draft or in previous drafts. Mitchell Trubisky has some weapons on the outside. I mean, Johnson, Jay Claypool, George Pickens. You got Pat Fryer moved to tight end, who I didn't even put on this list. But yeah, they have some real weapons here on this offensive side of the ball. Like Mitchell Trubisky should be able to make some plays with this offense. I am a little bit concerned about this Liz Frank injury that Najee Harris is kind of dealing with right now. If that was to flare up and they were able to lose him for any considerable amount of time, the job would fall to Benny Snell, and he hasn't been consistent as a number one running back basically at all since he's been in the National Football League. Not that he's had a lot of opportunity to really do that, but I just think that this is one of those games where, like, in Cincinnati, like, you got to prove that you're still the alpha dog in the NFC and the AFC North. Like, you can't lose this game to Pittsburgh if you're going to coming off a Super Bowl appearance. TJ.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Like, you got two teams coming back that's going to be healthy, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. You're no longer the secret in Cincinnati. You have a target on your back now, even though you didn't win the Super Bowl. Just the fact that you went to it, right? Like, your Tennessee, won't they lick back? Kansas City, won't they lick back?
Right? Kansas City probably feels like they let that game slip away, and they did.
And if you're Tennessee, you definitely let it slip away. You sacked that man 9 times. Win that game. Quarterback 9 times, you win the game, right? And it's like and they already said it, but they just like reconfirmed it, I guess, that Mitch Trubisky is QB1 in Pittsburgh. So Mitch, this is second chance, right? Like, this is your second chance as a starter. And unfortunately, you have a young gun that when you mess up, Pittsburgh fans are gonna be calling for the rookie to come in and play better and everything. Cincinnati, you can't talk about a new standard and then underperform, right? So, and to David's point, like, you want to be the big dog. This is what comes with it, all right? Like, yeah. This is what it is.
I mean, for years, Pittsburgh and Baltimore played with this target on their back in the AFC North, and they've always rose up over it. For Cincinnati, this is kind of a first. So you got to prove that you're the alpha in the AFC North by beating Pittsburgh in Week 1. And then our final game of the week. This is the consensus prime game of the week. It is a rematch between week number 18 of the NFL season. The final regular season game of the National Football League last year decided who went to the playoffs and who went to home to start their winter vacation. Las Vegas Raiders obviously won that that game on a last-second field goal in overtime. Last year's record at 10-7. They had 22 points per game, 25.8 points against. Key players on their offense: Derek Carr, obviously the new addition in Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, an underrated wide receiver who could have over 100 catches this season, who should have over 100 catches. Colt Miller is their starting left tackle after they released Alex Leatherwood, who is probably going to play right tackle. I think it was a right guard. Who knows? Key players on defense: Max Crosby. They signed Chandler Jones in the offseason. They traded away. His name's totally escaping. He's not important right now. Rocky Sin at the quarterback position, trading away Yannick Ngakoue. Jonathan Abram, a big hitting safety, is another safety on their side. The Chargers side of this is a really active offseason. You know, getting J.C. Jackson is not going to play in this game probably. Trading for Khalil Mack. Also getting Sylvester Joseph-Day, the Christian touchdown yesterday. Last year's record 9-8, points per game 27.9, points against 27. Key players on that offensive side of the ball: Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Rashawn Slater, who had one of the better rookie offensive tackle seasons ever. Gerald Everett, who they brought in from the Seahawks in free agency. Key players on defense: Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, and Kenneth Murray Jr. What?
Ron Bosa. Yeah.
Is it?
They have Joey. Nick Bosa plays defense. Nick Bosa plays for San Francisco.
Anyways, I will fix that right now. But yeah, so let's just talk about this game. So it's a rematch, obviously, of a game that decided who went to the playoffs last season. What are we looking for in this one out of this game?
One, can Brandon Staley not make rookie head coaching moves for the second year? Well, obviously, because he's not a rookie anymore. Like, some of those fourth down decisions where he decided to go for it, some of them were justified. Like, you know, playing the Kansas City Chiefs, you don't want the ball in Pat Mahomes' hands no longer than it has to be. So the longer he's on the sideline, he can't hurt you. So that I get, right? Some of those I understand, but the brain fart that he had against the Raiders, which essentially ended their season, you can't have that no more, right? Like, you can't, that can't happen, because the game was tied at that point, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you don't call the timeout to give the Raiders extra time to think about it, like, time runs out, you go to OT, and then who knows what happens from.
No, that was, it was already in overtime.
But the good, like, no, that wasn't a playoff game. Never mind. But
yeah, it was already in overtime. Yeah, the game would have ended in a tie. But for me, I think the big difference is, like, these two teams, like, they see what they have to deal with in the Kansas City Chiefs, and both of these teams realize that they're chasing Kansas City. And so what do they do this offseason? You're the Chargers. You voice up that defense. You add J.C. Jackson, who's not going to play this game. You get Khalil Mack. You have against Sylvester Jones-Day, who's a good defensive tackle. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you add Gerald Everett, who's a good underrated tight end, and you build up the offensive line a little bit more in the draft as well. Like, and then on the Raiders side of this, Devontae Adams. You trade for Devontae Adams. You sign Chandler Jones. You get Rocky Sin to play corner for you. This is two teams that realize, hey, if we're going to chase the Kansas City Chiefs, we have to go all in and try to beat them. And both these teams have pushed their chips to the middle, and we will see whose gamble pays off better. Either Los Angeles or the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it's going to be the Chargers because I think they have the better quarterback. And I also think they have the better – I think Joey Bosa is better than Max Crosby, but it's close. Christian.
Shameless plug once again. Yeah. Like, this is gonna be a really entertaining game. You know, I look at the Raiders and just everything they went through last year, from the whole John Gruden incident to Henry Ruggs to Damon Arnett, and this team still rose above it and still found a way to get to the playoffs. You know, I think that's absolutely remarkable. And now you have Devontae Adams. I mean, that little group of offensive weapons that the Raiders have right now, it's not looking bad on paper. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. Honestly, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be the X factor, not just in this game, but I think for the whole season, because he needs to stay healthy. He provides balance to that offense. Here's the thing, though. I don't trust the Raiders' defense whatsoever. Okay, after Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, when he's healthy and he's on the field, who else really scares you
I mean,
on that defense?
I do like Rocky Sutton, who's a good corner, but is he an All-Pro, Pro Bowl level corner? Not really.
No, not at all. I mean, and then you look at the Chargers. There's a lot of pressure on them. A lot of people are referring to them as a Super Bowl contender. Look, you know what you're gonna get from their offense. I just can't wait to see what this defense is gonna do because Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, they're gonna form a formidable tandem. Derwin James is the heartbeat of this entire team. He's their heart and soul. And then J.C. Jackson, you sign him to come in and line up against the Chargers' opponent's number one wide receiver. And he's going to have that test right out the gate against Devontae Adams. So, yeah, this game definitely has a lot of intrigue to it. I preview this one on Wednesday on the site. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, this should be one of the, it's for Chargers to get a little bit, you get to have your revenge immediately. And, hopefully it all works out for the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Hopefully this is an entertaining football game. This should be the Monday night game, by the way. I know Russell Wilson's going back to Seattle with the Denver Broncos, but
that game shouldn't even be televised.
Yeah. I would rather see this game on Monday Night Football. I know the Chargers are going to be on Monday Football, prime time a lot because of the Chargers, and I just think that this game should have been the Monday night game. That's just my honest opinion on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm taking the Chargers. Chris, you don't have to reveal who you're going to take in this game. People can see your results on the website if you continue to check it out, dailyblitz.blog. Another shameless plug for you, my friend.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this has been our Prime Sports World Prime Games of the Week, where we present to you the 6 games that our panel thinks that is the most entertaining or most intriguing games of the week. We're going to be doing this for every single week of the NFL season. We're going to give you the games that we have the most intrigue in. We're going to give you some storylines. We're going to give you some stats, and hopefully you had some fun while watching this because I had a lot of fun putting these graphics together. Also, give me some pointers on the graphics. What do you think? You think it should change? I kind of tweaked an old graphic that I used to use for something else and recreated these graphics with them. So let me know what you guys think. I'm David Huppin. Right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins, and right there is Mr. Christian Simpson. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. And we'll be back here on Wednesday doing the Fantasy Football Show where we break down our week 1 fantasy football rankings.
Fantasy.
Where me and Izzy break down our week 1 fantasy football rankings. You don't want to miss that content. I'm going to a concert tomorrow, so I will be unavailable to do a show. But you guys all be safe. And we will see you guys on Wednesday. And gentlemen, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
Nah, TJ, don't answer him because he disrespected Bruce Smith. Don't answer him. Don't answer him. Nah. You rude. Maybe you'll be back.
I just wasn't sure if he was still alive. That is not being disrespectful.
Then you don't say rest in peace to him. You don't say that if you're not sure.
You know what? I'm gone. I'm pissed off. I'm gone.
TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend? You enjoy week 1. No. You enjoy the first game of football, man. I'm sure we'll be in touch, man. Peace out, brother.
Peace.
Peace.